What was almost there. It was really it was recording apparently. Financial report.
I just had a question. So I'm scanning through the report and I'm seeing where there was a large number of deficits, all related, almost all related to insurance. Did we just under budget it or did they just go up substantially?
Mr. Mayor, yes, we did not put in our property insurance or our liability insurance. It was totally omitted from the budget. But I talked to the CPAs and I talked to budget law, and we're okay as long as we don't go over in
Over the
fund.
whole.
Yeah. So yes, it was a $35,000 bill, and we only had budgeted $2,000.
Any questions about this? Any motion to go forward?
I will make that motion.
Second. Motion is second to accept financial report, pay bills. All in favor?
Okay.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. Special orders. Right, so once a year, and not every year, it's just when the council deems it necessary or someone's worried, we give out an award called Mayor's Award. And the purpose of the award is to highlight a community member that has gone above and beyond and does something special for our community. And this year we actually have two people we'd like to highlight, two businesses we'd like to highlight. And so I'll tell you, I'll just say a little bit about it before I call them up. A couple of years ago, we started looking at things we could do around our community to make the community a little bit more inclusive for our kids and find activities. Then COVID came around and that kind of slowed everything down, but it also made some monies available to find some outdoor activities for our kids. So I started working on a grant, first one I'd ever written outside of a charitable contribution grant for the tribe, which those are easy compared to state grants and government grants, very easy compared to. So I wrote the grant, worked on it, had some guidance, and we ended up getting the grant for about $12,500. Yeah, which I came up with the idea of building an outdoor basketball court, and obviously most of you know me, I'm a basketball coach forever, so that was my #1 goal to start with. But I also just wanted to, I kind of pulled the kids, got an array of different things that they were interested in having. Basketball court was one of them. The extension on the skate park was another. Swimming pool was another. A lot of things. $12,000 wasn't going to hit us there. So we decided to go with the basketball court. I came up with a pretty meek design for a basketball court. Just wanted to get it in the ground and have something for our kids. And so I reached out to my friend Cody Warden, and I told him what I wanted, and he came and looked at it, told him how much money I had, and I can tell you that the court that we have now is nowhere near what I designed. So much better, and it is so incredible. I mean, if you haven't seen it, you should go get a look at it. It's got four hoops. It's almost the size of a high school gym, and it's stamped with Siletz Warriors on it. It has a key, different colored concrete. I mean, he went way above and beyond. So Cody pulled in a friend of his, Joel Stevenson, and asked Joel to help him kind of design and come up with a concept for the court. And when they showed me what they were going to do, yeah, I was pretty shocked because it wasn't not at all what I expected, way better than expected. And I'm certain, I mean, he hasn't told me, but I'm certain that it costs a lot more than $12,500. Not to mention all the hours and hours and hours that they put into it. Probably the coolest part about the whole program, other than the time these companies put in, is that every time there was a large concrete pour or any of that, they'd rally the troops and half the community would come out. I had to leave town one day and I swung by right before they started pouring just to see what was going on. There was about 30 people down there and half of them were 15 years old or younger. It's a pretty special thing. So I want to thank you, tell you guys how much you mean to our community, and just thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys for allowing us to do it, considering us, to help you with it.
Kid man,
That's awesome.
don't reach out to anybody else. You're always awesome to help our community. Joel couldn't be here, so Cody's gonna have to accept on behalf of both of them. Oh, you're over here. Yeah, there you go. Right here.
Great.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. This is great. I do have an office. It's not very big, but I do have one.
There you go.
We go in that closet now.
I have lots more crazy ideas in my head, so maybe you'll get some more of these.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, absolutely.
You guys are obviously welcome to stay for the meeting if you want, but you don't have to. We have, I know you have kids, so if you want to go, you're welcome to. Just, whatever you want to do.
Thank you. I think we'll excuse ourselves. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you very much.
We don't need, we'll be back.
Oh, yeah.
Now when I get his scratched out.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck, everybody. Thank you.
Columbia Bank Branch Manager, Melanie Hine, right?
Oh, yeah, you did it.
All the meetings you've been here before.
Oh, wow. Yes, okay, hello. And I brought my personal banker, Chad, so. I think she talked with Robert every time. Yes, so I'm like not as exciting news, but it might be good, I don't know. So Department of Justice came through in order to approve the merger between Columbia and Umpqua that started back in October of 2021. They said, here's your list of 10 branches that Columbia Bank must divest, and you're on the list. So we have a new bank coming in at the end of February, which will be First Security Bank. They are like, they've been around since 1936, and they're just really, I'm actually excited about this because they're really genuinely a community bank, and they really super care about their communities, their employees, their clients. I'm pretty excited about that. So like that really genuine community bank that we once were, and we're not anymore. Apparently, we will become again. So I guess I'm here to answer any questions you guys have about that upcoming transition. You guys are going with me. All of our staff is staying the same, so I'll still be the branch manager. I'll still be here for you. Shadow will be here for you. You guys have any questions, or you?
I think our couple of questions. One's a question, one's a comment. It was kind of a little frustrating to find out about this after the fact, and we had done some purchasing checks and things, so that was a little frustrating. But having said that, will we have to pay, because that was a great expense to us, and now we're gonna have to do it again. So
yes, and that is something that I still am in the dark about stuff. And I understand the frustration. Got the same thing. I literally got told who I would not be working for. Which I felt very un-American about, but there you go. Yeah, it was yes. If I would have known or even had any sort of inkling that this would come along, I would have forewarned you guys. Caught all of us off guard equally. And that's one of the things, like right now I'm learning more about the new bank and what I know they're doing starter points, but that is one of the things that I wanted to discuss. They do understand.
Yeah. So that is one of the things that I will be addressing, and I thought of that also. So that's one of the things I'm gonna find out, but I'll have to get back to you on that one. We don't know yet.
So now I have a question for Barbara. So in relation to, we're trying to roll out the payments online. And it obviously was set up with the previous bank. Is that going to cause any delay in that rollout?
It shouldn't cause any delay. And we'll have people to like help Barbara learn the system, make sure you guys, so you guys do the remote deposit capture, make sure that all goes smoothly and all gets taken care of. And everybody gets trained in how to use the new stuff.
Yeah, I'm not as concerned about the staff because I'm pretty sure that they'll pick it up fairly quickly. I'm thinking more of the tribal, the community members that may be wanting to initiate. It's something that people have asked for a long time.
That's actually through merchant services and that won't change.
Okay,
So that actually will stay the same.
okay, so there won't, I'm just worried about a hiccup because
Right.
we have waited so long for that to come on. Okay.
No, that actually stays the same. That'll stay with the same company. So
I think that was our biggest question, because we're getting ready to roll that out, and really including himself, pretty excited that it's finally happening. It's like, great. Good people going up.
actually no wrench in that work. So that's what
That's good.
yeah. So that'll make a big difference for you guys.
I know this isn't something you can answer, but we lost our bank here in town and it's a huge, huge drawback for the businesses in this town. Huge. I can't even, I had a business here and it was horrible when that bank closed. Is there any chance that they will consider opening the branch here?
I don't know. I have no problem asking any sort of
Well,
question.
promote it.
So-
Don't promote it. Now, we don't have the bank building, but there's opportunities here, but there's, I mean, as a business, it's horrible trying to get to do your banking and you think about, everybody says, oh, just go online, do the mobile, do it. That doesn't help when you have no team.
Right, no, and that's difficult for a business to do. That's, I totally understand.
Okay, thank you.
So, you're back.
I was gonna say, I think another reason why that's such a big issue here that you can share with your moms, is, we have a lot of empty buildings. We have some construction happening and we really are trying to revitalize the town. And a way to do that for business to come in is to have a bank here in this town. There's a lot of barriers to meeting those goals that we have unless there is financial services here.
Here's how I'm doing.
Thank you very much for coming, we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Lincoln County Veteran Services. Service Officer Keith Farms.
Hello, thank you guys for having me here today. I met you out at the car show.
Yeah.
And that was good. And I brought my better half here, just to kind of help establish my bona fides in the community here. I am Keith Barnes. I'm the Lincoln County Veteran Service Officer. I work for Lincoln County. I don't work for the Veterans Administration or Veterans Affairs. And a lot of people have a hard time understanding that. So I want to make that point right from the beginning. I'm not the VA. I do advocate and work with them and have good contacts with them, but I am not. A little bit about myself. I grew up here, kind of, and that I grew up in Vancouver, but my dad graduated from Catholic school in Lincoln City. My dad graduated from the high school there. My grandpa actually was the custodian there. My grandma taught at the elementary school. My dad, when he came back from the service in the 1950s, worked at the GP plant there in Toledo. My grandparents on my mom's side owned a hotel where Georgie's is. And they sold that in the 1970s and moved to Vancouver. So Lincoln County, and I say the whole county in itself, is always what I've considered home. And so when I retired after a 20-year law enforcement career, I brought her out here with me and we're here to stay. My number 2 in the office is Caroline Karaverdian, and she's also an Air Force veteran. And she lives up in Lincoln City. Her parents moved out here while she was on active duty. And when she separated, she had moved away from where she was at and established here in Lincoln City. So it's great to have her there. My office is over on Bay Boulevard, and we're really split into 2 ideas when you consider our office. One of them is the veteran services, of course, assisting veterans, disability, pension claims. I think of that side as the traffic cop side. Of course, being a retired cop, I think of things like that is, oh, you need disability services, come here. You need housing services, go over here. Oh, you need mortgage services, go over there. You need employment services. We all can do it out of our office. We have lots of community partners that come in and provide that. That is definitely the feel-good side of the business. That feels great when I have a veteran come in and they're hurting, or maybe they're not hurting, but they've had stuff happen to them during their career, and we can get that as service-connected disability for them and get a little monthly compensation to them. Or, we recently had a homeless veteran and she needed somebody to watch her dog while she went into the hospital. And we were able to arrange that through the shelter and get that paid for by a Samaritan, and working through that so that she could get into the hospital. Those are great feeling things. But when I looked at like the community side of it, or the political side of it, really it's talking about bringing money into our community. We have about 5,200 veterans in Lincoln County, and we have about 1,800 that seek services through my office. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the pension, the benefits, and the disability claims that come through. So if you're a veteran and you meet qualifications and things happen to you in the service, such as I was a Gulf War veteran, I spent 2 tours over in Saudi Arabia area, and things happened to me while I was there. So I have a disability rating by the VA, and they pay me a tax-free stipend every month for the rest of my life based on that percentage. To give you an idea, in yearly awards for Lincoln County, through my little 3-person office, Caroline and Lori, our office assistant, we bring in about $24 million a year. And that's tax-free money coming into veterans in our community. That's a lot of money for just 3 people to be going through that. Now, not all those are because of me. We take on anybody who is a veteran or in the service or in the sector before it. But in fiscal year 22-23, so this current fiscal year, starting in July, we brought in $150,000 in new claims and over $500,000 in back pay. So if you put in a claim in January of 2022, but it doesn't get it completed until January 2023, they back pay it all the way through. And sometimes that's a lot of fighting to get through. We had one that we fought for 5 years. When I took over the office 2 years ago, I started that, took it up where it was at. And that dependent, she was a widow, got a check for $140,000. And for her, that's life changing. Well, I think for anybody to get a $140,000 check, it's life changing, but for her, it truly was. And then she started receiving a $1,700 a month check after that. So that is really, it really is like I said, it makes you feel good. But when we look at that economic impact, that's a lot of money bringing to the community that they can then spend, whether it be, here in Siletz or in Lincoln City, Lincoln County, anywhere, it's money that they get to spend. One of the things I like to talk about, and I think you guys have this flyer, right? I provided it. What is a veteran? And I say this because we all have this idea in our mind of what a veteran is. But you might have to meet some qualifications to be considered a veteran by legal purposes. And a lot of our benefits are based upon the legal definition. So I had a guy call my office on Thursday. I took the phone call and he goes, "I'm a veteran." I said, "Well, great, I'm here to help you." And I go, "Do you have your DD 214? That's your discharge paperwork." He goes, "Oh, I'm looking for it." I said, "Okay, well, when did you serve?" In 1985. So there's a thing in there that people serving after 1980 get one set of benefits. People before 1980 get another set of benefits. I said, "Okay, great." So now I'm like focusing in on what group he's in. I go, "Well, what branch did you serve?" He goes, "Air Guard." I go, "Oh." And he goes, "What?" I go, "Well, if you're in the National Guard, you only get veteran status if you had been called up on active duty orders." during your tenure? Were you ever called up for active duty orders? He goes, no, I wasn't. He goes, I was medically discharged. I go, okay, you were medically discharged. When were you medically discharged? He goes, well, when I was at basic training. Oh, so that's an entry level discharge. So by definition, yeah, he told me he stood up, he rose his right hand, but he didn't meet the basic requirements to be a veteran. And what some of those are is served in the active military. So sometimes National Guard folks or reserve folks, even though they might have gone through basic training or gone through some type of military training, if they weren't called up in federal duty, they might not be a veteran. They have to be discharged with at least conditions other than dishonorable. The VA writes things backwards, and it drives me crazy. A discharge other than dishonorable. Yeah, okay, so if they had a bad conduct discharge or a dishonorable discharge or under less than honorable conditions, they may not qualify for all the benefits that are out there. And really, when you think about that, if you have somebody who ends up being a spy and they are discharged from the military, they don't get VA benefits. All right, but
Fair enough.
fair enough. I don't think we want to get them. So, and I say that because we do have people that, you know, they may have stolen articles of national security and sold them. Actually not unheard of. And if they were caught and they were getting a bad conduct discharge, we call them a big chicken dinner. A bad conduct discharge, they may not qualify for benefits. And the reason I say that is because sometimes you'll see somebody that'll have a flag, or what we call flag, having a sign and they're on the street corner and they say they're a veteran. They may not be a veteran. They might say that they're a disabled veteran. They may be a veteran, they may be disabled, but they may not be a disabled veteran. Or they may say like that, if you come across anybody, somebody's out here, please let me know. Let me come out and meet them because I want to provide services if they're eligible. But also, if they don't meet those requirements, I kind of want them to stop saying that they are. Because A, it makes my office look bad that I'm not providing services. And I am providing services to them. But also, I don't want them to be taking advantage of anybody who's out of the kindness of their heart saying, oh, he's a veteran, when actually they're not a veteran. I say he, colloquially, it could be a female, you know. Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, Space Force, merchant, did I? Space Force. My apologies.
I was there.
Oh, just, okay, so veterans. Veterans can make fun of other veterans. Other people can't make fun of veterans. It's the way how it is. I had a guy in my office today. We played softball together in the county league. And he's in the Coast Guard, so I said he was part of the Department of Transportation. As Coast Guard used to be associated and run through the Department of Transportation. So I get to say that. Well, I'm a veteran. He's a veteran. He knows I get to say it, and there's nothing he can do about it. Now, he did explain that my chair was very nice for somebody in the chair force. So it is what it is. Merchant Marines also can receive VA services if they were called up into active duty in the 8th Fleet. That's a lot of stuff that I think is really cool to know, but a lot of people wouldn't understand. The NOAA Commission Corps, so the people who run the NOAA ships, the commissioned officers that run that, they are also considered veterans. And the U.S. Public Health Services, so the nurse staff that's on those ships, or even the ones that are working at the federal prison, they may be qualified for VA services as well. There's also this thing that if they're in the National Geological Survey in 1906, they also receive benefits. So I don't think we're going to have very many of them, but that was a question on my test, so I know that. And then I go back to the economic portion. If we look at that $25 million that are brought into this community by my office, if you believe in the multiplier effect that every dollar gets respent about 7 times, that brings out about $171 million of economic opportunity into our community. And that's something that is proud that we do. And, you know, it's a neat thing, it's a neat process to come through. And then I always end it with the 988 logo. If you know a veteran that's having crisis, You can call 988+1. They will talk to them. Also, now a veteran who is receiving VA healthcare can go right into the hospital if they're in suicidal crisis and receive treatment and up to 30 days of inpatient care if needed, no matter where the hospital is. And then I also had on there the National Call Center for Homeless Veterans. If you have a veteran that comes in and they say they're homeless or facing homelessness, please give them my number. Encourage them to call, but also give them that number as well, because we want to make sure that, you know, if we have a homeless vet or somebody who's near homeless, that we give them their number and get them started in that process. And this also goes just not even as your conditions here in the council, but if you're at work and you work with a group of people who provide healthcare or stuff like that, or individuals, and you see if they're a veteran, please send them my way. Do you guys have any questions for me?
No, you covered it pretty well. Thank you.
Also, if you guys are hosting any events, please let me know. I'd be glad to throw my tent up and do that outreach. I'm really, outreach is where I get a hold of people. And quite often, even at that one, I'll have somebody come and go, well, what exactly? I'm a veteran. And we kind of walk them through. The next thing you know, they're in my office. And then they become a harass. They start to harass me about their claims and stuff like that. That's okay.
Well, when we get some events planned, I know we're planning a car show, it came soon and all that, so we'll get in the future.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
I do have a question. So, do you work with Tony out here, Tony Williams?
So Tony and I work together. Actually, I'm a VFW member also, out of Toledo, but I have keys to his building here and we work closely. He comes into my office. I actually helped him with his last thing and got him 100% service connected, which was a really good thing. And one of the things I've also been trying to reach out to is to the Siletz and trying to get me maybe some more connection there. They don't have a tendency to return phone calls all the time, and I don't know.
I am your person.
I know.
Yeah, so I will, I'll give you a call.
Thank you.
And
I
that way
appreciate it.
we just don't take up the meeting time, but I did have a funny question. So is there any repository of military memorabilia? And I asked that because my father, I don't know what he was, and that's another discussion, but I have some things that I inherited that were military issued, like reflective from our facility,
Okay.
complete with the leather holder. And it's not something I would want, but I'm trying to locate a military piece that would like that,
Right.
because it's a piece of history. But if I keep it, it's going in the trash.
Yeah,
I
so-
don't want to do that.
So quite often we have people come and drop stuff off at our office because of exactly that. I'm going to ask you not to do
I will not.
that. But there is a museum in Florence,
Okay.
Military Museum of Coastal History, or forget what it is. It's very nice. I would suggest going to them. Do you know what branch he was in?
I don't, that's something I was getting confused about.
Absolutely.
And I have pictures of him in uniform. The only thing I know is he built roads and, not airplanes, but the runways and stuff. That's all I know. I don't know.
So I could probably, I love that, and I will do this. I have a tendency to get down into those sinkholes and I have to pull out to do work.
Yeah.
And then I remember everything. So I would give me a call and we can talk about it and I can help you locate that history. And that's a really neat thing to recover that history and then find out more about the person.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. I was going to have a similar question. So I don't have a lot of history about my dad.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So send me an email and I can give you some good beginning research areas to find out.
You find that stuff on the website too?
We're building
I know.
a website and I hope to get my 2 cents worth in there. No, it's not on the website.
I do have one other question. So, in one of my previous lives, I worked up at the Siletz clinic. And there was a lot of discussion about veterans being able to be seen at the clinic for their annual appointments and all of that kind of stuff. And I don't know where it went because I left I'm not working at the clinic right now.
Right, so if they're receiving VA benefits and VA hospital or VA healthcare, they have to have an appointment at least once every 2 years with a VA doctor. If the clinic, and I know it because it's all federal monies, it sounds funny, but they would have to be part of a Tri-West is the name of the insurance company that covers veterans. Through the VA, they would have to be a Tri-West receiver of funds and be able to go, like I can go to the Samaritan emergency room, or I can go to the Samaritan clinic if I need urgent care. But then I go to the 1010 building if I need VA healthcare. But really, I just go to Portland because I'm able to make that trip for my VA healthcare. But there's lots of services out there, and sometimes I try to remember people first. So they're a person and then they're a veteran. So if they would qualify for regular services there, then keep them in that service and use the veterans on the backside.
So we'll talk about that when we get a chance to connect.
Absolutely. So,
Thank you.
and thank you guys for having me here. Now, I'm going to take my departure because I'm not going to sit the rest. Thank you, guys.
County School District Proclamation. Vice Chair, Board of Directors, Peter Vincent.
Yeah, you guys have a copy of the proclamation, great. I'm just gonna finish with you guys. Yeah, so, I'm here because Superintendent Gray had another meeting, and Vice Chair or Chair Ruth Martin had another meeting to go to, so this is, as Vice Chair, this is my moment to shine. The little QR code on the top right is a link to historical photos. It's been a really interesting process to see what's out there and see some old buildings. In fact, just before I read this for you guys, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a little marker off on the northeast, you know what it is, that was the side of the school out there. And it says, I don't know, 1867 or something like that. Oh, wow. Yeah. I don't know if it's easy to find. I'm going to find it before you go. So I'll go ahead and read it. Whereas the first school in Lincoln County was in Eddyville in 1866, with the first teacher being named Elizabeth Ann Porter. And whereas in 1923, more than 70 individual schools were consolidated into one school district. And whereas in 2023, the Lincoln County School District is now celebrating its 100th centennial birthday. And whereas the Lincoln County School District has provided outstanding educational opportunities to its students and support for its many and diverse families and communities for now 100 years. And whereas we now take this opportunity to proclaim to all people in 2023 that it's been 10 years of the Lincoln County School District with pride and honor, while at the same time honoring the land we occupy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the residents of Lincoln County, and most notably the children and families of the Lincoln County School District, honor the role of all the educators and support staff and the education of all their students. Reaffirm the opportunity for students and adults in the county to learn about and commemorate the efforts of the Lincoln County School District in its 100th year of operation. Reaffirm our desire to continue to strengthen democratic participation and to inspire future generations to cherish and preserve the historic precedent established. And finally, recognize the Lincoln County School District for its dedication and commitment to excellent administration for many. Just to fill you in, there are various events that are scheduled, culminating in May 17th and 18th, I think, with, two concerts, which are going to be from students throughout the county, and that's going to get informed. So you're invited to go and enjoy. I think it's going to be a really nice event. And
It's very nice that you were able to do this,
well, no,
since you have former students.
yes.
Yeah.
Spanish.
A ver, momento. Yeah, so, listen, I personally, I just had a great career. Moved over 20 years and I just feel so connected to Toledo and the community. It's nice to be a part of it again. And see how things are different and improving. Right.
Does that make us feel old that we were early in your career?
I'm on Medicare, so. Must be to help establish that percent.
Sophomore year in high school is your first year.
Was that right? Wow. I started 88, 89.
Oh, the year before we, okay.
Yeah. That school went a lot of change.
Yeah.
In my for the kids as well as for themselves.
Mr. Missy, is there somewhere on the school district's website or something that lists all 70 of those schools? Yeah.
That's really interesting because the person who has that information, I don't know if it's been put on the website, but Mary Chris, she's the one that generated. She didn't generate it; she ran across it. I think it was in archives in Gulfport.
It would just be wonderful to see that because that was a huge number in the. If you'd have said 20, I wouldn't have been surprised, but 70.
That's in like Nashville.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. The names of those schools are, there were these tiny little communities throughout the county. And I was talking to Brenda Brown, why weren't there more together? Well, you could walk to them, you could ride a horse to them.
Yeah.
And that's why they were so small. Yeah.
Anyway, it'd be interesting if you could carry that message.
I will track that down and I'll shoot you a copy of that.
That would just be really interesting to see both the name of the school and her.
Yeah, it is really fascinating. That would be kind of a little nice tour of backwoods Lincoln County for sure.
And I bet if the historical society might have it, but it would be really neat to put a call out to just the public saying, here's the list of schools. Does anybody have any pictures associated with that?
The Legal History Center is moving to the Old Lake Barrens. And so I've had lots of conversations with Brenda Brown, and they do have lots of material. It's worth it when they get reorganized in that new space. It will be it's interesting to go in.
Well, it would be a really neat presentation at some point, since we're celebrating the district. It would just be I don't know where to hold it, but whether it's the Visual Arts Center or Historical Society or something, but it would just be really cool to see that. Because I am not 100 years old. I imagine that if my grandparents were still alive, they could probably name a lot of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for coming.
Oh, you're quite welcome. It's my pleasure. Good to see you again. Yeah. I'm gonna head out also.
Thank you.
See you again. Thank you for coming.
I have a full board meeting. So, retirement's not all it's got. Okay, the various things. Thank you guys again.
No, we go.
Oh.
Right, moving to reports of officers of boards and steering committees. Parks and Rec.
I actually don't have a report.
Library.
I have a few things to fill you guys in on. We have added some hours to our schedule, so we are now open from 10 to 5 Tuesday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturday. So we're really happy about that because our Tuesday hours where we opened at 1 o'clock was just too confusing for people. So getting our hours up there a bit.
What was your Saturday?
10 to 4. We've got story time happening on Wednesdays at 2:30. Tina Nelson is doing that. It's going really well. We've got a nice regular group of kids and parents coming in. They're very enthusiastic about it. So we're having a lot of fun with that. And February is Library Lovers Month. And so we are putting together the Friends of the Library's annual birthday party for the library. And it's going to be 16 years now with the building. So we're having a sweet 16 party on February 25th from 1 to 3.
Oh, really?
I know. I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. So it'll be a book, bake, rummage, and plant sale.
What's the date?
February 25th. And the sale will be from 1 to 3. Saturday. That's us.
Thank you. Okay, comments, as always. Fire department.
Make sure I get the sweet 16 party down. That's a priority. Well, hi, it's been a couple months. It's been pretty busy. I took some time and buried into grants. It seems it's grant season, either closing them out, applying for them, or purchasing the last of the stuff to close them out. And so we just met with a board member today. We had there was 8 grants that I've been working on since December 20. And so some we're not going to get, some we are, then meeting with different people on why we didn't get them or what we did right, and why we did get them. So that's been pretty busy. There was a joint recruit class for 4 or 5 different fire districts. It was held in Toledo. Started with 20 students and ended up with 16. And we had 1 student graduate, so he became an EMR and a firefighter 1 since the beginning of, I guess, September through pretty much December. Say what? Oh, emergency medical responder. It's the first level of EMS and then EMT and then move up. So yeah, so that's that was great. And he's kind of a young guy, so hopefully we'll get lots of years out of him. He doesn't leave the community. We're gonna start a pretty intensive recruitment campaign. When either this Wednesday or next Wednesday, I'm gonna have a conversation with everybody. The charge is everybody comes back with 1 name of a person, and then we don't get enough people out of that, we'll do it again the next one. Just really, we know they're out, we know people are out there. We just gotta figure out what the barriers are for them wanting to join. That's really about it. All the apparatus is working. You know, I had 2 guys come home from a radio shop in Salem. They spent 10.5 hours and reprogrammed every radio we had. So we're not excited to see that invoice, but we're happy that all the radios are all on the same channel and it's the same no matter which vehicle you get in. So that'll be worth quite a bit when it comes to safety feature. And I think that's about it. I'm a little tired. We had 2 back-to-back calls that started at 4 this morning. Hadn't had a call for 7 days and then 2 this morning. So it's like I've been dragging all day. There's not enough coffee. So I know that I think I left you a voicemail.
Yeah, I owe you
And
all
we
that.
started talking almost 2 months ago. I think last time we talked, you asked about the logo for the sign you were working on.
You got that for me.
Yeah, that didn't
And
work.
then right after that, competitor tribes put that nice new fancy electronic sign, so we're a little pulled back to see what we're gonna do instead, so.
And maybe get the mini mark, put a big billboard on top or something.
Yeah, I would still like to have some kind of a welcome to
Yeah.
Siletz with all four of our main logos, the city, the tribe, the fire department, the school, all in one. And
Well, you know, there's
your own logo, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a post down on Highway 229 where our fire district starts. That's a little green one saying enter in the fire district. Why that post couldn't have a sign? You know, if they wanted, I mean, we could, I don't know who put that up, probably ODOT or somebody could talk to that.
Yeah.
Since the post is already there.
Yes.
And then I guess the question, whatever came of you would float the idea of all the major stakeholders having a meeting every couple months or something.
We just talked about that, at our meeting on, for whatever day it was, last week.
So that's still in the works.
It is still in the works,
Okay.
and everybody has responded well if they'd like to be a part of it. I know that you were off for a while, the CSO for the tribe, is that? CEO for the tribe was off for a while.
Right, yeah,
Kind of-
Curtis and I were
every-
kind of talking before in the office.
Yeah, it seems like every time we start to try to funnel that together, something happens, but all the stakeholders are interested, including the school, so definitely something will have to happen.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. I know Sheriff Flanders had voiced that he was really supportive.
I had a question. So I have a niece that is working, I'm assuming it's really, now, kind of in a high school explorers group. Do we have any kids involved with that? Or do we support that?
With which storage space?
No, with an explore, sorry.
Oh, well. I can't-
With the high school explorers.
Oh, yeah, so Toledo, so there's a lot of different ways to do that. It's junior firefighters or under 18, between
Yeah.
15 to 18 years old, and people are 14 maybe. And so there's an Explorer program, which is this offshoot of the Boy Scout, which is what Toledo subscribed to. There's a fee that goes with that. Certain requirements, because you're part of the Boy Scouts of America, you have to follow certain regulations in there. There's a junior firefighter program from the National Volunteer Fire Council. But it's much looser, it just says you're a junior firefighter. And then there's a cadet program, which is kind of what we use, where they're underage and they're interested in Navy fire service. Generally, they're in high school. They could be as low as junior high, but really high school seems to be where things start solidifying. And they can't do any actual firefighting. They help us on scene though. So when the fire is done, they can help roll hose. They can squirt water from a really safe distance if it's not a growing fire or anything like that. They help with social programs where we do food baskets at Christmas and things like that. And we don't have quite the pull because most of those folks are going to school in Toledo.
Right.
You know, I think one of them is going to school here, and then the other two are going to school in Toledo. But maybe that's not right. Maybe two are. Oh yeah, because I guess one is on the football and basketball. Yeah, so that's been one of those programs we wanted to do. We wanted to get into the school early in the fall, and when I met with the principal, she was just coming on board and things were a little hectic and we weren't quite sure. And now, so then you wait till after the holiday and then it's like, what's the time zone? You know, I mean, and then competing with, you know, our prime demographic is basketball, football players, and they seem to be busy with basketball, football. And one more thing, you know, and then we have a requirement to got to maintain a GPA just like the sports do. Well, if it's too many things, then their academics are going to suffer. That defeats the whole purpose of what we're trying to do. So,
are they a cadet group? Is that what you're,
but then what? Cadet group?
cadet group?
Oh, yeah. So we have 3 cadets.
Okay.
But Toledo has an Explorer program, and I think they have about 6. We are planning, because Greg Musil, the captain over there, is in charge of that program, and him and I have talked, and we're going to try to do a joint thing where they train together and do some Explorer program. I'd like Explorer programs and was part of one or helped organize one in Kaiser. It was really large. We probably had 15 Explorers, And they every year would meet for, kind of, it's like the jamboree, except it's all explorers. And they would meet at the fairgrounds, there'd be 350 of them around the state. And they would do firefighting skills, you know, bucket brigades, hose advances, air packs, all those kind of skills. It was, and they would camp out on the fairgrounds and sail and stuff. It was pretty impressive. And then in mid-Columbia in the Dalles, when I kind of started, we did a junior firefighter program there. It's all very similar. And we did field trips. I mean, we did things like go to the fireboat in Portland or go to the wildland fire catch at the air base in Redmond, kind of big field trips along with stuff. So it just, you gotta have a few of them to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And then one of them that we had here, a young woman, she got very busy with some of the other activities she was doing in school. I don't know if it was dance or whatever, gymnastics, something, you know, and so it just. And some of them don't drive. And so unless their parents are coming this way.
Well, I just happened to see some of my nieces involved with it. I think great. I guess it would be, I don't know, again, but anyway, they had a posting, they were helping serve at a restaurant. But, you know, we didn't get any notice, and that last minute, our mom said, well, if you guys are going out and about, you know, I'm just curious how we can help support them.
Yeah.
You know, there's not enough notice. to
Well,
do it.
yeah, the Toledo Explorer post, when we have the openings. When in the summer, I can't remember now. They actually had a table there and were promoting their Explorer post. And so a couple of our cadets are going, wait a minute, how come we're not? I said, well, so they actually had a table too. They just didn't know. Well, he said, well, you're supposed to be standing there. Oh.
You were
That stuff here. So,
Where's our table?
sounds like.
sometimes like hurting. Pushing over.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's a great program, and it, you know, they can do a lot of their training, and so when they turn 18, they can do the final part of their training, and then they can actually be a firefighter. So it's just, you know, if people already have a lot of things going on in their life, it's hard to add everything to it, especially if
Well, I think he's probably one of those cats, so who knows how much they take with it, but I just was trying to find a way to help support them because
yeah,
it's important to encourage kids, you know.
yeah. Oh,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, well,
All right, William County Sheriff's Office here to report today. Staff report. Staff report and staff report today. Public comment. Open and say it 3 times. Public comment. This is time for anyone in the public to comment. Last call for public comment. Public comment period closed. Unfinished business. Approval of the joint session agenda for January 31st. Yeah, that day, January 31st, 2023.
Mr. Mayor, I put both agendas you had. I gave a very weak agenda to the mayor. He beefed it all up. It says mayor's version on the next page. And then I whittled it down and made just an agenda. But I do know there was concern that they give something to the tribe so they're not coming in blind of what we're trying to talk about. So I don't know what version you may want. I do have a PowerPoint presentation printout from RCAC that I just got today that I'll be including with that packet. So,
And what, I'm sorry, what's RCAC?
that's our rate study people.
Are they going to be there also?
Yeah.
Okay. Because,
They are going to be there to walk through the explanation of things so that we don't have to do what we were worried about doing, that is explain it in layman's terms. That's not what they want. Yeah, pretty much.
okay.
Yeah.
So did the tribe have input into the agenda?
So you all gave me permission at our last meeting to reach out to them. I reached out to Lisa and Curtis. Lisa and Curtis let me know that he's sent out a punch list of or an open invitation to the council members to come up with things. He said there's a couple that they intend or anticipate giving us, but we talked our way through this, this kind of list. I just gave him like the highlights of the list, not the details of the highlights. And so it was robust enough and it talked about most of the things they already wanted to talk about, but he would get back to me before the 28th with any additions.
Okay.
So yes, I want to make sure, like I said, the same thing I said to you guys, I said to Curtis and Lisa, that this is not a city inviting them to come participate in a city meeting. It was a joint meeting. I want everybody to have the equal amount of say. So this is a robust list, but it's all the things that we talked about needing to be added. And, you know, I mean, there's a good chance that we get partway down this list. We don't get through everything and we push it to the next meeting, which is fine. But I want everyone to be able to see where our thoughts are going and that we are looking forward, not just looking today. So that's why I added so much to the list.
I'd like to mention under the future growth housing and infrastructure. When I hear infrastructure, I'm not thinking of parks to begin with. And we've got issues with lighting and sidewalks. But like you mentioned earlier, places to rest when you're walking.
Yes, right, people need to have a place to stop. Yes.
So I think there's a whole lot of like recreational things, but there's also like not public works, water, sewer, but public works infrastructure we have to consider. Because it's pretty dark on some roads. And my daughter reminded me, what about the street lights?
Well, it is a big deal because I used to take the dog for a walk, and if you don't hit it at the right time, you're walking in the dark. Well, there's that darn cougar over in the field, so it's not as simple as just walking your dog. You gotta watch out for that cougar.
Well, and like we talked about the other day, some of the streetlights that we have that are already there. I mean, I'm not kidding you. This is no joke. When you come out of my driveway, and it's a steep driveway up to the road, and it's nice to have that street light right there because people can see me coming out of my driveway, you know, in that weird time where it's not really dark enough to see my lights yet, but it's too dark to kind of see my gray car. Every time I get halfway up my driveway, the light turns off. And it just like I come up there and it goes, boop, turns off. It's like, really, are you? And most of the time I drive up backwards because my driveway is so steep. With front wheel drive, it's easier to get up backwards. You don't feel out. So I get up there and stop right at the top. Boop, goes out. You can't see me. Those are
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Someone monitors it better.
Now, this looks like a good agenda, and I don't care which one we use. I think they're both good, so.
I tried to capture all the things that I know that we've been talking about. Beautification, just an array of things we've been talking about. I have no problem adding bullet points under infrastructure for streetlights, sidewalks, whatever else. That's fine. We can add things. Like I said, this isn't a one shot and we're done thing. This is a quarterly meeting, so it would be nice to have a robust list going out that we can work our way through. So yeah, that's.
I guess I'm curious as to what y'all think is the better format to have all this. I like the shorter one. Think this is a good reference for discussion. Okay. Just because this will be the official agenda.
But like I said, I like robust, so we know what we're looking at for this. I'm not sold with one or the other. As long as we don't lose sight of what we really want in, you know, the meat and potatoes of it.
Well,
I would keep this to discuss.
correct. I feel the same. I think that the shorter version is similar to the agendas that they would have and that we have. And, but you want to take this because it's got some bullet points that flesh out some of the subject.
Yeah. Well, let's wait until the 28th when we get the list from CPSI, and then we can kind of reformat it with the shorter version and add theirs. And only this is a couple days beforehand, but
That's a Saturday.
it's the 27th. So somewhere in it, probably now. What's that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, to get the fact, yeah. that makes sense. Okay. Oops.
And I go ahead and add streetlights and sidewalks to
Okay.
infrastructure. For that.
Leaving you alone.
Me too.
This is.
I will.
Really, it's going.
Yeah. Someone got hurt.
Yeah.
Well, I left that project for 2 other people, and I finally said, and say, hey, what's that lead? What's that, like last Sunday in the rain? Covered it out over. Anyway, okay.
Thank you. New business. Intergovernmental agreement on House Bill 4123, homeless response countywide. New.
Just gonna,
Yes.
Since Councilor Traxel is actually on this whole committee, she may better speak to this, but I put together where we've been, what our attorney's done and not done, so.
What's the Draxler? Floor is yours.
This is very thorough. You probably know more than I do about the whole stuff. This is the final one they sent through for city, so
Well, it was kind of interesting because they do put it in there. Please have your governing body consider approval of the IDA by March 6th, but they also tell you to send it to your attorney. Well, our attorneys are.
they all work.
Yeah, so.
Yes. Okay, so this is the piece for that $1 million that came through to the county. And all of the attorneys in all of the cities looked at it to make sure that there weren't any sneaky little requirements that the city would have to do. Our participation is as members of the advisory group, which will transition out as a temporary thing to get it started. And then it will turn into a board with advisory committees. I have, you guys have a PowerPoint, a few PowerPoint slides on that process. But you are welcome to read this further if you want. I haven't found anything, and if all of the attorneys agree to it in all of the cities, I feel pretty comfortable with it. So it's just saying that, yeah, if we're going to participate, you know, the goal is to get something like that. I don't know. That would be great.
Why is the drive not?
It had to, they chose not to. Oh, yeah, it had to do with different government structures and something.
It is really, it's,
Yeah. But yeah, they want it, they're supportive, they just can't be. They should.
okay.
Yeah, and pretty much all of these cities and the NCSD. Also, housing authority, though you don't see it here, housing authority is also. But not as voting, but they are at meetings providing.
Oh, go ahead. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's really good.
I haven't tried to read it, but I don't have super heartburn over it, that many attorneys look at it. But, so basically it's gonna create the office to
Yeah, so this
manage
first
the
year,
grant and work on the plan and.
right, exactly. So this year in this little timeline, yeah, so we're doing, the first year is the planning, that piece I mentioned in the, I think it was in the work session. That it might, that they're trying to shorten down the amount of time we have a planning to work with GMAC, elongated, so that we can have community meetings.
Yeah.
I've not heard anything yet on that. So that's the first year, and then the second year, we'll have a person hired, set up the actual office and start making this happen. basically.
I have a question because it's something that has come up here before. And it's not an easy thing to have an answer to. But Mark didn't think we had a homeless problem. And we absolutely have a homeless problem. And yes, we have a drug problem too, though, you know, it's that lots of times they go hand in hand. I'm asking this question, not just for Mark, but has anybody been able to get a handle on estimated numbers in our communities? Because, you know, every 10 years they have the census and they try to get people out there, but the reality is a lot of homeless people don't want to talk to people, they don't trust people. So we really don't get an accurate picture, but it's definitely something we need to get a handle on, at least in an overarching way to know what we're looking at.
So I believe it might have been this week or last week, they're doing the point of time count in Lincoln County. They were recruiting volunteers to go out and see physically homeless, how many there were at that point in time.
See, that's what gives the impression to folks that there's not a homeless.
Well,
problem.
it's how you define houses.
Yeah,
And so what was happening was so when the governor put those, I did this today, I can't remember where I read this, but when the governor put out those emergency orders for houselessness, the second day of her term, and excluded all of rural Oregon from that emergency, because, well, our Dahlberg actually reached out and talked with her, according to his letter today. And they're going to allow counties to apply for emergency status because it's not representative. What happens in Sherman County is not what happens in Lincoln County. And we were included in all of those very rural, lowly populated counties. The other piece is that it's, as mentioned in his letter, was it's not easy to know the exact number, but you do consider the school district's definition of houseless, because they have a lot of info on who's living where in their community. They can work with places like Community Services Consortium, who may have with people within their purview, or senior disabled services on who is not housed. And the problem and the reason why we're trying to get this group together is that getting all that data in one place is impossible. And there's not a good way right now to go find all of it. So that's one reason for this whole office, is to get a better number. But just by doing the homeless definition for the school district, it's off the charts. Here,
Well,
it's like way more than, and it's people sharing houses.
Well,
Or
that's the part that
RVs or
gets
something.
missed is
Yeah.
the people who are, and for me, we kind of know our families and our kids, but you don't, the biggest population is single adult, male and female. And
No
we-
chopping around.
yeah, or what we end up with, and so I would put this in the minutes, really, but that, like, we have elders that they'll move in on because they're, you know, they feel sorry for folks, and then pretty soon we're having to deal with them in housing because they're taking advantage of elders and, you know, but there's a lot of people who just don't get identified, and it's a much bigger problem than people realize in our own little community. I mean, we see what we see in Newport, Lincoln City, but that's only a small piece of the
What you
homeless
see is like
population.
the iceberg.
Correct, and there's so much.
Well, that's what I was getting at when Mark first brought that up, is that, you know, what he's talking about is homeless living on the streets, homeless, not the real problem. And the real problem is, like you're saying, all of these families that have 2 or 3 families to a house, and or parents aren't living here, but the kids are because it's the only place they get the kids, and I mean, there's a difference.
Hardships for families that, you know, they're having to leave their kids somewhere, but just so they know they can get a shower and get their school.
So one of the things we're looking at doing is having, first of all, that the structure of the project is, after we get through this planning process, there will be the executive committee, which will be agency representatives, things like that. But then there's also going to be the steering committee that includes the county housing authority, and they'll have advice from people who have actually lived homeless. Anyway, whether it be on the streets or living with family, or living with family and then having to be on the street or in an RV. So they'll have people with lived experience actually advising on what to do. That's the difference, I think, than what we've had in the past. And in the past, we've been very segmented. The tribe has their housing programs and their social service 477 programs. The state has their programs.
Right.
And it's just everyone's trying to do the same thing. And this is the goal, is to bring that all together. And the other pieces, there will be work streams. So not just putting someone in a home, but also, you know, how do we get the whole community to be involved in this and actually see the problem that we have? What are the services? How can we surround them with help? That's why we need an actual place that will gather all this stuff in. So we know, if we don't know what to do, we can call the homeless services office and see what is there. Because they'll be like a clearinghouse basically for everything. And then looking at what are the economic barriers. There's a reason why people can't get their own home, whether it be housing costs out of control or our wages are too low to support living in this county. And then the last piece will be mental and physical health. How does that contribute, or how can we support them because their living situation has caused physical issues or mental health issues? So it's more than just getting people off the street. It's really looking at the system as a whole and how we can do better in supporting. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's such a big, it's a huge, you're not gonna get it done in 5 years, so there you go.
No, and this.
I'm not trying to be negative.
Oh,
We'll
no.
never get that. in 5
I mean,
years.
What, in 2010, a 10-year homelessness plan that the county did, and that got nowhere because there wasn't really a central coordination.
Yeah,
It was a commissioner pushing it, and then everything changed. No central place.
I just was, over the weekend, we got a text from somebody saying, hey, we just got a family into a home and they have 0. Well, there's no place for people to donate to or donate supplies because there's no repository. And that's just a simple thing. But for somebody that just got their first home in years, it's a huge barrier because you can't afford to go buy a 10 fixtures.
And it's a problem I saw in social service all the time.
Yeah,
And we would have to send people to the valley, because they've got places in the valley that you can refer people to, but we didn't have it here. All we've got is through the help program. They have some things, or South Lincoln Resources will have a thing, but it's all like hodgepodge together.
yeah, and it used to be, call this church, they
Yep.
might be able to give you a gas stop when you get to work, or call that group, and I don't know anything about Braceman's even.
They
But,
don't have supplies. I mean,
well, but
or
what are they?
helpful
Are
items.
they, 501c3, all I'm saying is that people don't know the reality of. So I'm always nervous when people say donate to this or donate to that, I'm happy to donate. But I wanna know it's gonna get where it needs to be, and there's no. So your
Yeah.
discussion about having no repository of the information is absolutely true.
So I'm hopeful this, because I participated in meetings for that whole 10 years and homelessness happened way back then. And all great ideas, but we kept running into that same problem. No central organization to do that.
So
So
do you think that this will help bridge that gap?
I think so. If we can keep the people who are involved now involved, if we can keep that representation and keep that advisory board and have a good leader of that office who can project manage, who can know how to communicate, who can be a facilitator or a convener of groups to try and solve problems after we have this consulting call. So that person is not hired yet. Didn't really get applications for that part. So if we get the plan, then I think we'll be good. But I would advocate for us approving the agreement. I know it says draft right now. Are we sending a separate one later?
I really don't know. This is what we thought.
There's at least one.
There's no one.
Somebody needs to go.
So where are we with this? 'Cause it's been. Are we being asked to approve it as it is here? Because this keeps going back. It's like a. Never ending agenda item. So where
I
are
know.
we at?
Long houses.
I understand that. But
I know.
I'm talking about houses. So I'm talking about the.
I think, it was just to get it back on everybody's table again. I think if we take it up towards our last meeting in February, we'll have it done in March, and hopefully they'll come out with something new.
February board. I'm honestly, you have to bring it. No. No.
So, just a recommendation. I would go give it that South Central stuff. Okay.
Oregon Public Works Emergency Response Cooperative Assistance Agreement.
Mr. Mayor, this was given to me from, Public Works Supervisor, and he says we always enter into this. I told them that I prefer to have the council review it, just so they know what we're entering into. Doesn't seem anything out of the ordinary, but I think we need to be cognizant of what we're going to or not going to, and have everybody on the same page, so that's what I'm saying. We said we participated in it, past years with Toledo, getting equipment or personnel, or there were several things that we participated in.
Okay, so it's about mutual aid and.
Yeah. So like if the way I'm understanding it, if it gets a little more into depth than what was explained to me, but if, let's say we needed a bulldozer, and we had no means to get one, we could borrow it from the community as long as we're part of this agreement. That, and we'd be expected to do the same, so maybe something that borrows.
The biggest piece of all of that is keeping the documentation so that at the end of the emergency response, if we get reimbursed. So, yeah, so that is not something I am super familiar with, because I was always in the incident commander role and
Well, and that's something that,
Trained on planning role.
that's something that's a
All
little,
paperwork.
yeah.
that's something that's a little. Has been a little frustrating to me and Siletz in the past, when we went through the COVID, all the COVID mayhem. We made it very clear at the beginning of that to keep track of everything that we spend, everything that we do, and everything. Every response we have to take with anything COVID related because of the COVID relief payback and all of that, and none of that was done in any aspect of our city. In fact, it was like, oh no, we decided not to because we've done so little and had to deal so little. But when you look at the things that other people have put on their list and claim, we did all the same things. We just didn't get them back for it because no one wanted to do the work. I'm fine with an agreement like this, providing that like Susan said, the work is done to keep track of what we're borrowing, what we're loaning out, and what kind of work we're doing, because if there's some kind of government payback, we don't want to be the only city in the county that's not a part of that because we just didn't do our work. That makes sense?
And it is definitely something you have to start from the beginning and just keep accumulating. So, and it's not easy.
Has any of our public works staff done recent, like within the last 4 or 5 years, ICS training or FEMA training or how to do that kind of thing?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, because we had them come to the county.
We've had one person that went through a bunch of that kind of more work, so that's okay.
Well, and you know,
Right, but we need it for like, all the staff should at least go through some basics.
the tribe's emergency manager had just put out notice about
Yeah.
the training that was up in Lincoln City, and I don't think there was a cost to it. But we should get plugged into that and have several staff go. Because if, you know, in an emergency, and this is kind of the thing that we talked about over and over. In the middle of an emergency, it's just kind of the stuff that we did. And we don't have these fancy little titles because we don't really care. It's boots on the ground and who, you know, I know that if I need a bulldozer, I need to call Alan because he's got it, or Max, or whoever. So they have all kinds of fancy names, but if you don't keep the paperwork kept up, and we're lucky at the tribe to have an emergency manager, but the city doesn't. And somehow we need to dovetail on something because that training is really critical.
Well, we did have a trained emergency manager who had the box with all of the titles and all the things in it. And that was Mayor Robinson, and he just moved to Newport, so he's no longer that for us. He was going to continue in that capacity for us, but he just moved, so he will no longer be that in that capacity for us. So it's definitely time to get that sorted out and kind of get ourselves in.
It would be a good subject matter when you get the group together, when you're talking about the different entity groups, to talk about that could be something that you put on the agenda.
And like I was saying on Wednesday when we were talking about the same, I have a PowerPoint through my eyes, what I did it after the fires and after we started dealing with COVID, and through my eyes, what that looks like, not based on fancy titles like you're saying, but based on what we actually did, boots on the ground, and what we know that we can get from the folks around our community, where things could be housed and where the helicopters could land and where the fuel could be stored and all that. So I have that, and that is a part of that, part of the topic for that group. And that's, I had previously, like I said before, I previously sent out to all of them. And since then, we've got new tribal CEO, a new emergency manager, new fire chief, a new principal at the school. I mean, everybody is new except for me. So it's like,
Yeah,
we have rolled the dice over and over again. We keep trying to get it wrangled into, now that we're settled, let's do this, and then we get unsettled again. So
but
it's
you know,
time.
there's, that what really helps is to have a notebook, and it doesn't actually channel on them. That each entity has the same info, and that's the critical part, because what I kept running into is that the fire department has their stuff, and the police would have theirs, and the tribe would have. But it needs to be, when we're talking about the select community, there needs to be, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, if you ever looked at the tribe's emergency response manual, it would make your eyes roll back in your head, but they have requirements they have to meet. That doesn't mean it's gonna work on the ground. And what we need are those critical pieces of who you can call, when and where, and it's difficult because you have to update those as people leave and people come in. Really hard to keep that updated, but that's really what we need. That's our community.
Well, and that's part of it too, is that as relationships get better with different functions, like we don't have much of a relationship with the school. We haven't, past administration didn't want to be there and be a part of things, and we've got new administration that wants to make that change. We've had up and down and tumultuous relationship with the fire department. Just as we started going in a good direction, the chief left, the chief came in, didn't want to be a part of the city, really. Left, came in, we got a new fire chief, folks been in and out. So I mean, we realistically, in my mind, we should all have a piece of the plan and operate under and we really have two emergency managers in Siletz. One is our fire department and one is our tribal partners emergency management. That's really where, when rubber hits the road, we're all going to pull into a meeting and we're going to work together to get things done. And that's what I tried to do with this kind of PowerPoint plan that I put together. Is realistically, here's our umbrella. How are we going to work together and who's going to do what? So agreed, it's time to start moving that forward. Plans don't do any good sitting on my computer at home.
Well, this is the motion. I'd like to make a motion to sign the agreement.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to sign the inter-city agreement for
The Oregon Public Works.
Oregon Public Works.
I do have a question. So there's a section in there.
Go ahead, I was just saying it for the record.
Okay. Under section 6 on compensation, one of the things that we really need to take a look at is setting aside some funding, contingency funding in our budget, should we ever have to activate this and use equipment. We have to pay for it. It isn't free. And so at this point, I don't recall if anything like that in our budget for this current fiscal year, but I think we need to keep in mind, not just that we're part of this, but that we have to set aside some funding, even if we don't use it from year to year, but set it aside in our budget because we could end up using it.
Doesn't do any good to have an agreement and not be able to fulfill the obligation to do it.
It'd be good to do that and roll it over. The only time we would get money is if it's a declared emergency, and then the paperwork has to be.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to sign the agreement for emergency management through
Oregon Public Works Emergency Response Cooperative Assistance Agreement.
okay, with the Oregon Public Works Emergency Response Cooperative Assistance Agreement. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you.
Wait, could they get a longer title?
That's on the wrong page. All right. Correspondence. 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 A very unhappy correspondence a little bit ago today. A community member is furious and feels singled out and picked on because and angry that I personally didn't come to the door, knock on the door and ask them to clean their yard because the code enforcement officer did. It's the code enforcement officer's job. I made it super clear in my response that that's the code enforcement officer's job. And that's why we hired the code enforcement officer in the first place. And that if there was a grievance to be discussed, not to come to my front door and yell, or not to make threats to our code enforcement officer, but to show up at council and ask questions and have the time to have your questions answered. Individual did not show up. Want to make sure everybody was aware that that was correspondence today. Okay.
Is there a safety factor for you that you should put that, some notice out to the sheriff's department? Because individuals should not be able to approach you like that and be threatened.
Especially knowing where I live and saying they would come to my house and not have it.
Well, unfortunately, I think everybody knows where each of us
Yeah,
live,
I know.
but I have a big dog. So there you go.
I got 3.
Yeah, but,
I've got a big attitude. Does that help?
No, really doesn't.
but I'm just asking for safety's sake, should this get reported to the traffic?
And so to answer your question, the same question I had with our code enforcement officer since he works there, did he report this? And I haven't looked to see what his response was yet. And if not, I'm gonna ask that he does. Since the threat, he inquired with me and was fairly calm. But he wasn't calm when he talked to the code enforcement officer, who was yelling and screaming and making threats of going to my house. I didn't hear it myself, so I'm gonna ask him to turn that in. And that's kind of how the reality of it works is I can turn and say, I was told that someone said, and they're gonna say, okay. But if the person that heard it says, hey, this was the threat made towards the mayor, that has more gravity. So that's my request.
Okay,
And thank you for the thought on that, because yes, and I would feel the same way if someone was threatening one of you guys. I would expect us to get the police involved.
Well, is a time where some members of the public have thought going and shooting up elected politicians' houses is an okay thing to do. Or hiring people to do that. Luckily, we're a small community. I highly unlikely anything like that would happen.
I don't know. There's a
But
bullet
it
hole in them.
can, right? A bullet hole here. So I cannot say fresh things.
Well, for me, it's more about, they worry less about myself. I know that I am personally protected, but I'm not always home and I have a group of kids, and that's where, and someone's home often, so that's,
Yeah,
I worry about that more than anything. I don't want some crazed maniac showing up at the house and scaring my son and my kids out to death, you know? So it will be, one way or another, the police will be involved.
okay.
Thank you. They're nonpartisan positions. That makes it happy. I have a question then about that. Are you waiting on the status with an attorney for the court or?
Ms. Rick, I called law court today, but he was not, he was not in the office today. I left him a message saying
It's with law court.
okay, yeah. So, and you were doing something.
I'm going to Mary Cross, yes.
Yeah.
I did speak with Mary Cross briefly. We're gonna sit down and have a face-to-face conversation. I wanted to do that on Friday. He was away at the game. I wanted to do it today and I was unavailable. So I'm hoping we can have that lunch tomorrow.
The other thing, just in passing, it was interesting that the veterans person was from law enforcement. Because, I mean, I'm starting to listen to people and their potential abilities when maybe be a judge.
Well, here's an idea. Here's the other thing, when you're talking to the community group, does he live out here? The veteran?
I think he's,
Don't think so.
I don't think so.
He
No.
might be up north.
Yeah, his wife is Deborah Barnes. I think he said they bought a house in Newport. I think that's what he said.
I always think of during an emergency, having a deputy here that is at our disposal for the emergency. And so that's what keeps my interest when he was talking about being a former police officer, not about the judge, but about that. So.
I mean, hey, it's a good angle to look, right? And we're gonna look for a judge in our community, what, better way, outside of what community we can do for them. What better way, I mean, you know, that we can use lawyers and
Regular old people.
regular little people, why not use some of this?
Definitely can use an optometrist.
Yeah, we can use the, if we can use the optometrist, we can.
Maybe we can use the clients for it.
Sorry, military and then leave. Any more council comments? Yeah, so I wanted to know more about the, honestly, what you just asked about the judge, about court. Do we don't have any, further on
It's only been like 3 working days.
it?
Seems like a lifetime ago.
It seems like a lifetime ago. It's only
Oh.
been-
I did too. We spoke a couple days ago about potentially sending McKinsey in a direction for to look deeper into the Parks and Rec host.
I have Shelley with me actually. I can give you a brief update. She brought stuff today. So the Elks has that kind of program, but we couldn't get anybody there, so we're reaching out further. Salem, I think, is where the headquarters or whatever is, because they have a host program. She reached out Moonshine because they have a host program. That's more like a lift, but she got the state criteria and she's printing it all out, and we are getting it put together, you know, what their policies and procedures are, what the application looks like, the length of time. We're getting all the nuts and bolts. So when we do this, we don't have to go, oh, we gotta adopt a budget, you know, a policy and all that. So policies and procedures. So we can certainly hijack it from somebody else and make it our own. So she's working on it.
So just a suggestion to maybe help. When you say she's reaching out to the state, is she trying to reach out to someone in Salem, or is she trying to reach out specifically to the, because I mean, they have the same program at the Beverly Beach State Park, South Beach State Park.
Actually, we found better resolve of going to the website and getting information.
And that's not a suggestion, we don't.
Yeah, acting like we're gonna apply. And, but she worked on it today.
Okay.
County parks. I don't know.
And we're trying to put it together a whole package so that we can present it. It'll make sense and we can all with it.
And I know that most of our county parks, they try and find someone like we just had it for a very, very, very long time. I don't want to do that.
So I wanted to go back to law enforcement for a minute. And I know that we've had a lot of discussion about being unhappy with law enforcement, etc. And I just want to say that I was very unhappy with the deputy refusing to give us his cell phone number. And I did run into our previous officer that was out here just on accident. We were both at an art show together, and it was really cute. His daughter was there, so she had to tell me all about her project he was gonna do. But anyway, he said there isn't a reason why you shouldn't have that number. It's on their business card. So when you have a meeting with law enforcement, I think you need to bring that up. To give me the non-emergency dispatch is fine, but to refuse to give a working number is not okay.
Yeah, I can see not giving it to the general public, but to the
Correct.
council, you know, I've had the, like I said the other day, I put for my cell phone, I've got about 20 different officers. I've got a direct line to Sheriff Landers, for crying out loud. You know, there's no reason. I mean, I've literally, because of this constant rollover of officers in town, I've had an issue where there was a fight and there was all kinds of mayhem going on by the store. And I had to call Sheriff Landers to call the officer to call me back to show up to take care of it. Then the officer was annoyed that I called his boss and the boss jumped on him. And it's like, you know, I'm not gonna call dispatch and wait for 45 minutes for you to
And
respond.
dispatch is in Salem. They're
Yeah,
not
it's not, they're
local.
not locals, they don't know.
Yeah, they're not local, but more than that, I think it's so disrespectful to our community to refuse to give us that number. And I have had all of the previous numbers and they can attest, I don't call them unless they call me first. And it's because we're working on things like National Night Out and things like that. If there's an emergency, I don't pick up their number and call it, I call 911. So to me, it's extremely disrespectful for a city council to ask for that. I did not share that number with anyone, but so I just want to be really clear. I feel like not only is their response to this community minuscule at best, the fact that we're having continued turnover and we're not even informed of who our representatives are is another disregard of the services this community is paying for.
Well, and that's the thing, Tina, and this has been my frustration all along. So like what happened at our last meeting. A new officer comes in, introduces himself. I am the police liaison. That's my commission here, right?
Right.
Police, fire, and emergency liaison. And I get a lot of pushback because I've been fairly aggressive on this for this whole time because of this situation. We get a new officer who comes to introduce himself. And I had no idea that we lost the last one, much less that we got a new one. And not only that, he gave the name of the day shift officer who is not on my list of day shift officers. So both of them now have changed hands, and I didn't know either of those.
Right.
And I'm looking at the monthly documents I get from our policing liaison, and there's very little activity going on out here, and yet I'm dealing with activity myself more than they're showing that they're dealing with. And they're, you know, you continually hear from them, well, you guys have gotten back into this routine of not calling. We've gotten back into a routine of not calling because the routine of not having an officer out here or having to wait for someone to drive from Newport to get here when we're paying for someone to freaking be in town. That's the struggle right there. I mean,
And I can say that I felt really confident with the officers that we had right before this, because we saw them.
Yeah.
We saw their vehicles, people stopped and talked to them. And that's a huge piece of policing, is that people feel comfortable going up and talking to them. I haven't seen a vehicle here in I don't know how long. And did they? Well, good.
Well, you know, because my dogs bark.
what frustrates me with that team is that every time I bring it up, I get the same lip service that, well, we're there, you just don't see us, or that you don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Mayor. We've got this and we've got that. This guy was here then, and this guy was here then. I am out. You know, I put my time into this community, parked in different places, watching the things that I know go on. Now we have the code enforcement officer who's out, you know, 1 day a week, all day long, and those things.
2.5 days.
Sorry, 2.5 days, okay? We have this happening, and yet we still don't see the policing going on.
Well, and I don't expect to see the police 24 hours a day. That's not it, but my office literally faces Main Street.
I don't expect them 24 hours a day, but I do expect the times that we pay for them to be here, to see them here.
But also, they're so comfortable with turning it over without even telling anybody. That's really inappropriate to me. And I feel like they have a better working relationship with the tribe, which is fine, but they should build that same relationship with the city.
Well, and we were trying to get there, and here's what. And this is why I keep having this is why I put it on the agenda to talk with the tribe about and trying to get on the same page mentally about what's really going on. So this is what I heard repeatedly. We don't have a contract with the city of Siletz. We don't answer people. So, and I get that. However, you have a contract. I have an email that I've saved that I've referred back to many times where Sheriff Leonard said to me, I don't have a contract with you, so I don't owe you anything. And I blew up on him a little bit and said, well, wait a minute. I pay my taxes every year. You have a contract with me, whether I'm the mayor or not, you have a contract with me. So you answer to me. And his response was, well, really, we answer to the tribe, and we don't answer to anyone else because I am where the buck stops, not the community. So that's where my problem is with this policing. My problem with the policing is that we should have a absolutely defined board that deals with policing, tribal, outside of community, within the community, board that deals with police, not this feel-good group that we've got now that we meet when it's convenient to everyone. And we talk about a few things and it has no teeth because it's not, because we don't have a defined group that is in control. This should be a defined group that's in control, and we should have a timeline every 3 years or whatever it is, where we look at whether we want to put this back out to bid to others. But the way this is written, it's written for Lincoln County Sheriffs only. It's not written as a policing bill so that we can now hold them accountable. If they have to be held accountable every 3 years, they know this goes out to bid and others can come in and steal that contract and those dollars from them, I can promise you the job is going to get done. But when that's not the case and the sheriff determines whether it's good or whether it's bad, I mean, we had Sheriff Landers, Susan was with me. We had Sheriff Landers come in and give us a spiel and tell us a bunch of things and admit some things to us that were very frustrating for us to hear. Went over to the meeting in Newport and explained those things, and he said, "No, that's not what I said, and that's not what's going on." Changed his entire story. He told us here, we know we haven't given you the service you pay for, and we're going to have to find a way to make that up. I brought that up in the financial meeting,
The budget
the budget committee meeting. Yeah, I brought it up in the budget committee meeting, and he said, no, that is not what I said. No, we're giving you exactly what you paid for. But he had just told us 2 nights before in this building, he admitted that he wasn't giving it to us. So I can't even straight answer, I mean, I get jacked around just enough.
Well, regardless of what he says, we know what we're getting and what we're not.
And that was the point we were both, Susan and I were both trying to make that.
So I just wanted to bring it back up again because I feel like, while it's true, they do not have a contract with the city of Siletz, regardless of that, the community sees the city council as having a role, and they're coming to us with their frustrations, not to mention that we see it anyway,
Yeah.
but they're coming to us, and there's no board for them to go to, because the board is nothing more than a budgetary overview.
That's
That's all it is. And
That's right. Well, what started this whole point that I'm getting to is that when I got the email that said, we're having our budget meeting, blah, 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 it's gonna be a commission with the commissioners, so on and so forth. I wrote a list of things I wanted to talk about, and I sent it in, and they were, everybody was appalled that I would even think that I had the right to say anything like that. I got very strongly worded emails back from Sheriff Landers and from some of our commissioners about this is not what this is for, how dare you, kind of a thing. It made me feel like, well, then what avenue do we go to fix this? Because if I haven't got the right as the mayor in my community to say you're not doing your job and that'll hold you accountable, things have to change.
so as we're looking at community meetings, I think we need to have a separate one for specifically law enforcement and explain some of the issues, not necessarily our opinions about them, but just the board is not a functioning board in relation to having oversight. It's only a budget board to approve the budget. And that we need the citizens who are paying for this to stand up and say what it is that they feel, invite that conversation.
And I'm gonna tell you my personal thoughts on that are that there's only one way that that's gonna happen. And the only way that that's going to happen with any kind of teeth is if we take what we currently have and put it back before our voters and say, we don't want to abolish the policing because we need it out here.
Right.
We aren't asking you for more or less or anything else. We're asking you to change this so that we have so that this is not a Lincoln County Sheriff's contract. This is a policing contract controlled by a board of directors from the incumbent areas. And we as a group will oversee and hear complaints and hear issues and determine if we need to put whatever you want to call it, go out like we are with our lawyer going out asking for an RFP, asking for other policing departments to come and.
Well, the officer that I talked with made a really good point, that they have the funding for those positions because of that contract. So if we're not getting our contract met, we're paying for services we're not getting, no matter what Sheriff Lander says. We don't have to go into a huge debate here, but I want it to continue to be a priority for us. However, we need to make it.
Well, I think it's interesting, the mayor has it on the agenda, the joint agenda. And it would be really, because I've heard Lisa say that they're very happy with the police department. Well, it would be interesting to know what makes them happy and the citizens unhappy, just to weigh it out. And
that's why I put goods and bads
yeah,
on there, because I want to hear from, because here, the bottom line too, is that even if, I mean, this is a 50-50, the joint venture, right? The community, the policing district, which is the same as the fire district, pays a proportionate share, and Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians pay a proportionate share. We pay an equal amount for this policing, right? We can't say we're going to make it stand if the tribe's happy with the services, because if they continue to pay and we don't, then the whole thing will unravel and we'll have nothing. And the police know this. They know this.
I think they've made quite an effort to maintain a good relationship with the tribe, but have not with the district.
Well, and it's easy to maintain a relationship if you show up to meetings and you put on a smiley face and you show whoever is your liaison for police the things that you're going to do, but they don't see what you actually aren't doing. And that's what I feel our tribal partners need to see, is not just what they tell you, but what's actually happening. I mean, I don't care. They can put on a shine all they want, but when you're out in the streets in the evening and you don't see them and you don't see them and you don't see them, that tells a different story.
I can get the phone numbers for you for the police and then officers. I can push it. And get
I
those
don't
numbers.
need, I'll get it.
I would like to have.
That's not really the point, and you shouldn't have to, because I specifically asked for it and was denied. That tells a lot right there. So I don't need you to, I can do it. I mean, I could call up Sheriff Landers and I can be a pill, but that's not really the point. The point is when you're a public servant. So we're all public servants, and if somebody asks for my phone number, and they do, I give it to them because they have a right to that number. It's no different for that officer. Yeah.
Even more so because he's not a volunteer, he's paid to do a service. So even more so. What's that?
As a county consultant.
Yeah, I'm not asking for a personal out of the pocket.
Nor would I ever. That's not. But when you are looking for an office and you're provided with a tool that you're supposed to be communicating with your essentially work clients, and you refuse to give them the number, that's not okay. So anyway, I think it's a good point to bring up at the joint meeting, because I think their scenario is quite a bit different than ours in that they have kind of a contained area versus ours is much more open, and they have people watching out for each other, you know, neighbor to neighbor, and we don't always have quite the same. And so I would like to hear from their perspective why it works, but I can tell you one thing for sure, they have regular meetings.
Yeah.
And we don't have meetings. The only time the sheriff came out was just to whine about how understaffed and, yeah.
Well, and in all fairness, they did offer to do a town hall, but a town hall doesn't, so I support the idea of a town hall, especially using that for other purposes like we talked. But the only thing about a town hall is you're gonna get more of the line that we heard at our own meeting. And more, maybe some direction and maybe some ideas and blah, 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 but you're gonna get a lot of what we don't have, what we're doing for you, and what you don't see in the background and this and that. I believe that's what you're gonna hear more in a town hall, and our community is already fed up. They don't wanna hear any of that. What they wanna hear is, what are you providing? When are you gonna provide it? And stop telling me you're doing something you're not. I mean, I know that that's what we're gonna hear from the community, because that's what I'm hearing. Community. And I'm getting people saying, why am I still paying tax dollars? They're never here. I call them and they don't have an officer on today, sorry. And we're to this point now where we're paying for, and Lander said it in his news article and he said it to our faces. We're now paying for the above and beyond, but they've went out in that news article and said, we're no longer providing that day-to-day service. The only thing we're getting is the above and beyond. We're not even. Right.
Thanks for letting me in.
No, absolutely. I've been thinking about it for a long time. It's nice to hear it from somebody not just.
Is there anything you want?
There is not. That was, we were at council comments.
Mackenzie did with the map going.
Oh, good.
Don't quite know where we're at with it, but
I mean, kind of pretend bullet hole in
Get one of those bullet hole stickers to put there as
it.
a.
Yeah, just for fun.
Absolutely. For about $2.99 on eBay.
I have no council.
Any council comments? Okay. I would entertain a.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting at 7:31 PM. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye, all opposed?
Please. Because we have to turn this.
Okay. I'm going to. We're going to move it, so it can hear, even if they want to.
I